podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to the Ospreys Eyrie.
Hello and welcome back to the Ospreys Eyrie podcast. I am your host, James, joined as always by, quite frankly, the best centre partner anyone could ask for. Bishop and Ashley Beck here. It is Iestyn. How are we, Iestyn?
That is a big compliment, and I'm very happy to take it. So, thank you. Yeah, I'm all good. It's very short time for me this evening, but we've got enough to rattle through anyway.
Yeah, so we're recording on Tuesday because naively all of us are busy this week, especially towards the end of the week. So we thought we'd record on Tuesday. Robbie unfortunately can't make it tonight, but he echoes our sentiments. And anything you want to say to Robbie, you can just at him on Twitter. He's always on Twitter.
Yeah, not everything. There's probably some things that probably can't send across. But most things rugby related, I suppose.
Any Kemsley Matthias related chat?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he's a big fan of that.
Cool. So let's go straight into the news. There is no news. No, realistically, there's no news. I don't think there's any fresh injury concerns coming out of the Cardiff game.
I didn't read anything, but that's probably updated later on in the week, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we'll know at the press conference tomorrow.
Yeah, an early press conference. It's not Saturday.
I think Munster might have had theirs today.
Well, Munster are really kind in doing an injury list for everyone, which is...
I suppose we could talk about that quickly. So, I'll talk about that when we go into the actual Munster chat. So let's talk Wales squad. So for those who didn't see, Warren Gatland released his 36-man Wales squad on Monday. 6 Ospreys have been included in the squad. They are Jack Morgan, Dewi Lake, Gareth Thomas, Sam Parry, Owen Watkin, and the uncapped Keelan Giles. Firstly, let's just say a massive congratulations to all 6 of them. All thoroughly well deserved. I think we knew 4 of them were going to go anyway. You'd been very surprised if one of Jack Morgan, Dewi Lake, Gareth Thomas, or Watkin wasn't picked. Sam Parry is hugely deserved, especially around that pre-Six Nations period where he was just unplayable. He was so good. And then the nearly man, Keelan Giles, who's been ripping it up, deserves his call-up, deserves a cap. What's your thoughts on the 6 that have been called up then, Iestyn?
Yeah, certainly. It's good to see representation on the board. Congratulations to all 36 members that were called up to the board, because obviously being selected for a summer training squad is more than I'll ever do on the rugby field. So I can only send congratulations to them. In terms from an Ospreys perspective, it's good to see those players being called up. As you mentioned, 4 of them were probably, I wouldn't say shoo-ins, but you'd be very shocked if they weren't named in and around the squad. And, well, Sam Parry is playing such good rugby over Christmas that Dewi Lake moved to number 8 briefly. But that might have more been down to the back row crisis that the Ospreys had at the time. But yeah, he probably deserves another recall, and it's great to see Keelan Giles, in a Welsh squad again. I was there for that Japan game back in 2016.
You poor thing.
Willing to see a young Keelan Giles to get onto the field. Of course, Sam Davis nails the winning drop goal, which is rather exciting at the time. But yeah, it's good to see him having another crack at it, and hopefully the first cap does come. Although Gatland's quotes probably say a different story, and there's been a lot of talk about things that Warren Gatland have said, not just about Giles, but about other players as well. So it's it's a bit of an interesting one.
Yeah. So talking about that, it very much gets the vibe, and I'll go more into the ranty stuff in a bit, but it very much gets the vibe of they wanted to call up Cabango. But Cabango got injured, and it seems that Giles is only there to make up the numbers. I do think that there's a genuine shot of him making the South Africa matchday squad if Mason Grady plays in the centre, which would be very exciting. But what we can't not talk about is the omissions, right? So let me first caveat saying this, as I said on Rap last night, I'm in no way blaming players, nor am I slagging players off. Any player gets called up to represent their country is brilliant. They deserve the plaudits. From an Ospreys fan point of view, and I'd like to think that we know a bit more than the average fan, or we pay a bit more attention than the average fan. It's really tough watching your team not be fairly represented within a Wales squad when you've won as a club more games than all three of the other regions combined. They're in a winning culture. So it's tough. I'm still struggling to put into words, and I've sort of been on the forums, been on Twitter, sort of talking about it, and I'm of a mindset now where I just don't see where the next the next Ospreys player gets called up is. I don't see who it is. I don't see who our next new cap is. I don't see who in our squad fits the Gatland profile, or what Gatland perceives to be a Test match rugby player. So let's go through it. So the obvious two are Morgan Morris and Nicky Smith, right? I think Nicky is baffling. He said it's around Nicky. We know what Nicky can do. He's just got to keep working. We want to look at other people, and that's fair enough. Like, I don't mind that. If he wants to look at Kemsley Mathias, that's absolutely fine. But you cannot ignore statistics. And I am fully aware that Kemsley Mathias is a very good carry and prop, very good ball carrier, but is also the most penalised player, not just prop, player in the URC. He, for me, as a prop myself, is not a good scrummager. So, yeah. What are your thoughts on the Nicky Smith omission? Yes.
I think especially with Gatland, of what he said about, maybe having a look at other players. If that was him maybe giving Nicky Smith the summer off or a rest for a period of time, you could argue fair enough. You can see why he's doing that. He wants to look at other props like Kemsley Mathias. But the issue I think most people have regarding the omission would be the fact that Smith has not been called up for the last previous squads. He wasn't in the. I can't remember if he was in the Six Nations. I don't think he featured. And his last game for Wales would have been against Portugal, I believe, in the World Cup, or Georgia in the World Cup. And you look at it from that perspective, you're thinking, how long is a break from the national setup to look at other players? Surely not. You've got to go through the entire Six Nations campaign and the summer tour to look at what Kemsley Mathias is. That's maybe just the summer and maybe have Smith in the Six Nations, fair enough. But just for me, it seems that the quote's off a little bit regarding how two international squads and he hasn't been picked. Yeah, Gatland is still saying, "Oh, we're gonna have a look at this player or that player," and something like that. So it's tough to take for him. Probably makes sense on why the move to Leicester next season is really, really happening, as the fact that he's not been named in the squad. And it just, for the player, for Nicky Smith, I hope it goes well, but I hope it goes well for the younger players as well, because they've received, a lot of criticism. Yes, stats are out there. The fact that Nicky Smith's only given away 9 penalties this season. Obviously, Matthias has given away 23 in the URC. But, regardless of who, they shouldn't get criticised for giving away penalties, I suppose. But it just feels like the quote itself just feels a bit off for me.
Yeah, and that's the theme going throughout. So then we move on to Morgan Morris, who, in a way, I get, having sort of spent time on Twitter talking to those people. I get that he's not going to upseat Wainwright, who's proven on the test arena that he's capable of being a very good 8. He clearly isn't the genetic freak that Mackenzie Martin is, and potentially maybe doesn't have the higher ceiling than Mackenzie Martin. And you've got Jack Morgan then as your third choice cover, as well as Taylor Plumtree, actually. What my issue is again, Gatland skirting around what he wants to say. Don't say his stats what is off the ball work. That's not a stat. That is not a metric you can measure someone. Does that just mean he runs back and forth like Jason Rucks, or does that mean he accelerates quicker on kick? It doesn't mean anything, and it's disingenuous to say his stats in defence, if that's what you call off the ball, are bad, because they're not. They're good. The stats are out there. Harley and Hugh have gone through them. Statistically, he's the best 8 in Wales, or on par with Wainwright at least. I am of the mindset, and I've said this all the time. If Morgan Morris was called up, played 1 or 2 games, and bombed, I would have no issue with him not being called up again. Right? But the system, as Tom Shankland said on Saturday, should be if you are rewarded for regional form with a call up to your national squad. That is the system. That's what it should be. But it's not happening. And I don't. There's not much more else he can do. It's just look, and I've made my bed with it now because it's not happening. It's just not, and it's sad, and all this, and I think as a Ospreys fan group, we just have to keep getting behind the likes of Morgan Morris to keep going. To keep performing. Who are the other omissions from the squad, do you think, that had a genuine chance of getting in?
I had one other, and just going to briefly go back on the Morris point for a second. It makes Friday's team talk slightly easier, because maybe if Gatland might have just poked the bear of Nicky Smith, Morgan Morris, they might trot out Friday evening and they might become very, very angry rugby players, which could go well but could go badly at the same time. But one other player that I kind of thought was rather unfortunate was James Ratty. I thought after thinking at the start of the season, thinking, oh, he hasn't really added much value, but I think it's just the consistency throughout Christmas into the new year and then throughout the Six Nations period. You thought, all right, this player has certainly got something about him. And, he's been in Welsh camps before. I think he was called up in the Wayne Pivac. Is that the year before last? And you think, that's a really good time for someone who can play in the second row, can play 6 and 8, stacks of versatility, would be a real good addition to see what he's like. Similarly to Morris, we don't know how these players are going to cope on the international stage without them being tried and tested on the international stage. And for me, I just felt like that Ratty should have got in, and I think he's probably one player that maybe people haven't really spoken about and has been really unfortunate.
For me as well, you've got Ruben Morgan-Williams, who consistently has stepped up as a starter. So I get why sort of he's called a Bellis Bevan. He's highlighted his left foot, which is very handy. We know he likes a left foot kicker, but I don't see I don't see what Ellis Bevan brings compared to Ruben Williams personally. I'm just trying to find how tall he is. He's 5'11", so yeah, he's a big guy, 92 kg. So I get he's probably got the size factor as well. Still tough. Dan Edwards, I never thought would make it in, but what's more glaring is Gatland's comments about him 10 than what he wants. So essentially, he wants a big 10. He wants a physically imposing 10. Probably in the same vein as a Farrell or a Pollard type size 10. He's stuck with Costello, obviously, for continuity, but he's earmarked Ben Thomas, who has significantly bulked up, and Jacob Beetham, who, despite never playing 10, they do see as a 10. So, to me, and people have said I'm wrong, to me that says Dan Edwards is not getting called up unless there's a severe crisis. He doesn't have the versatility of being a dual position player, like a Johan Lloyd or like a Beetham, like a Ben Thomas, like a Costello. So that counts against him. So for me, that says he's not getting called up. There are others in there. We talked about Ratty. We talked about Hugh Sutton and various other things. And look, we can spend the day shouting at whoever listens that these Ospreys players aren't being picked and we're underrepresented. So just for the breakdown, I know you put the site on Twitter: 5 Dragons, 6 Ospreys, 6 Scarlets, and 9 Cardiff. 10 from outside of Wales, which is probably the most they've ever picked. 9 Cardiff is what it is. Fair play to them. They've supplied the most consistently to the Welsh team this season, and I hope it works out for them. From an Ospreys point of view, the good thing is that we're going to hit the ground running in pre-season with a virtually full squad. With the likes of Beard being back, Fender, Rhys Davis hopefully will be back some point towards the start of the season. So look, I did my rant on rap last night. If you want to go listen to me ranting, go listen to rap and go see what I've posted on X and see the replies and things like that. And my closing remarks regarding the Wales squad are: Gatland clearly doesn't see in our players what he perceives to be test match players, right? Barring a few. It's clear he in his mind has a view of what a test match player looks like, and unfortunately, the Ospreys don't fit into that mold. For whatever reason, is it Toby Booth? Is it the players? Is it their size? Is it their conditioning? For whatever reason, they do not fit into what Warren Gatland wants. And I think the best thing for any Ospreys fan to do is to start limiting their expectations when it comes to Wales squad representation and matchday squad representation. Because the more you limit your expectations, the less gutted you're going to be.
And I think a good thing is as well, I think it's kind of similar to the Six Nations where you thought, why isn't this player being picked? Why isn't that player being picked? I just remember being, coming out of the Ulster game, there's just a bit of a buzz going on because kind of everyone kind of filtered back into the side. Of course, Tipperick coming back was a bit of a boost. Obviously, he's retired from international rugby. But it kind of just felt like it kind of kicked on during the international periods. So regardless of, whoever would be called up from an Ospreys perspective, of course, you want as many players as you can in fighting for international honours or playing international rugby. But if it doesn't materialise for whatever reason, might be preference of what Gatlin wants or whatever, they can come back to the ORC and continue playing week in, week out. And from a supporter's point of view, it must be a better feeling to see the team winning week in, week out, because you can see some of the performances they've put in over the last 12 months, and you're thinking they can do it here comfortably. If they can do it every week here comfortably, then they'll be shooting up the league table. But of course, everyone will probably want those players in the Welsh squad if they kept on performing week in, week out.
Yeah, so that's that, I think, with the Wales squad. So just before we go into looking at Judgement Day, we are very lucky this week and this month, actually, to be sponsored by the guys over at Manscaped. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to announce that smooth sack summer is officially upon us. When you're playing in the summer sun, make sure you're groomed from pubes to butt. Thanks to our friends at Manscaped, you can make this season your smoothest yet. Their Performance Package 5.0 is the ultimate bundle to keep your boys downstairs cool while looking hot. Join over 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Using code RugbyBalls at checkout, you can get 20% off and free shipping when you go to manscaped.com. That's RugbyBalls for 20% off and free shipping at checkout. Now, the guys were kind enough to send me over their Lawnmower 5.0. I got to use it yesterday. Really good, really good stuff. 5th generation trimmer features 2 interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blade heads, a standard one for taking a little off the top, and a new foil blade to go smooth wherever your heart desires. Also got LED spotlight control to provide greater contrast on skin tones, light setting cones, and did I mention it's waterproof too? So big thank you to the guys at Manscaped. The thing is incredible. I'm very lucky to have one. So remember, go to manscaped.com, use our code RugbyBalls at checkout for 20% off and free shipping. So, Judgement Day. We were there. It was fine. The crowd was disappointing. If you want to hear our thoughts on that, go to rep. No way was there 20,000 in there. One game was significantly better than the other. Full credit to Scarlets, they got the job done, but there were 2 poor teams, and I think some people are getting a bit too carried away with performances and things like that. And certain players' performances as well. So, firstly, Iestyn, what impressed you most about the Ospreys on the weekend? Just because it was a good bits first.
The fact that every other result went the Ospreys' way for a start, which was
there is that
weird.
So, do you want to explain to our listeners, in case people don't somehow, what the permutations were going into Judgement Day?
So the start of round 18, the Ospreys are sat in 11th in the URC table, needing a couple of results to go their way. Bennett and Edinburgh were the last 2 playoff spots, and they were playing each other. The Lions were away in Cape Town against the Stormers, and Connacht were in Dublin. Luckily, Leinster did a really good job of just keeping Connacht quiet and won. They weren't as ruthless as what they were a few weeks ago. So it did look like the IRFU had something to say in it to try and give Connacht a slim chance, but in all reality, Leinster won. Moving on to Saturday, there was 2 games kicking off at the same time, and my Premier player broke down in a massive heap and crash. But I saw glimpses of Bennett and Edinburgh, which looked a little bit nervy until Benetton thought it was a really good idea to run away with it, which was fantastic news for all involved. Then out in Cape Town, it was a bit nervy, a bit close. Then the Stormers had a man sent off, and the Lions led at half time. And everyone was thinking, it's going to be that side that the Ospreys had beaten twice this season that's going to nick the final playoff spot. But luckily, after some heroic try-saving tackles, one excellent one in the second half, but I can't remember who it was. I know the name escapes me, and it was a Stormers player. It was excellent. It's surely been clipped up somewhere on social media. But the Stormers came back and won, despite having a man sent off, and it all got really exciting. So much so, I forgot to buy a matchday program at the Cardiff City Stadium.
Yeah, so did I. I'm gutted.
Yeah, and then I rocked in my seat for the first of two games. So by the time the Stormers game had finished, it kind of was clear on what the Ospreys needed. I thought I didn't really think the Ospreys would have gone into the final game with needing a result to get into the playoffs. I thought they'd have finished 11 at the start of the season, and I was looking rather good for that prediction at the start of the weekend. But it turned out that the Ospreys needed a bonus point win, and they got it. And the positive thing of all that was, well, one, they won, and two, I thought the back row was excellent. I double checked the stats this morning on Rugby Pass. Jack Morgan and Justin Tipuric made 44 tackles between them. Morgan topped the Jack tackle charts with 24. Tipuric made 20. Morgan Morris was top second best carry out of the lot because Cam Winnett just wanted to carry everything. He made 19.
He also made 12 tackles, didn't he?
Yeah, and Morris made 12 tackles as well, which is quite it. And I spoke to my dad earlier, and he said he had a quiet day. And I said, well, he made 15 carries and 12 tackles. There's not much quiet about that. That went well. And it was at times it was refreshing to see some offloads. Maybe at times it wasn't the right time to be throwing them, but in terms of chasing the bonus point, they got that, which is a massive bonus. Obviously, they didn't do that out in South Africa. They didn't do that against Leinster. Of course, there's a bit of a contrast between those two sides and two Welsh regions, although Cardiff admittedly played very well. But yeah, it was relief to get the win. It did get a little bit nervy, but you kind of felt like they just had enough to stay on. And then the penalty try with about 4 minutes to go did really seal it, and was a pretty good day out in the at the Cardiff City Stadium, I thought.
So a lot has been said about the Ospreys and their inability to spread the ball wide and things like that. But for 2 weeks now, we've played with permutations behind us in that we've had to win with bonus points. Like I know the aim of a rugby match is to win with maximum points, right? But you want to do that naturally. And Ospreys have been very good at doing that naturally this season. But when you're in a position where you're forced to chase tries, you do things that aren't going to work. You do throw that extra offload. You do look for that miracle ball. You do. So I get what people are saying, but let's not forget that we've had permutations behind us the whole time. But I do agree with you, that second try in particular is fantastic. And I think I like Mason Grady, but Ospreys made him look very amateur in defence. He had a torrid time defending all day. So if you look at that initial build-up, that second try, it's brilliant. So you've got the really good kick, Winnett gets smashed, it's turnover by Tipuric, who takes that quick tap. Little interchange in Morgan Morris. Hugh Sutton comes on that, and I don't like to use his name, but that Corey Hill line, who unfortunately knocks it on. Cardiff then spread it wide, and it's probably where Ben Thomas shows his inexperience. That ball needs to go wide straight away. He doesn't. He takes it in. I think it's Ratty who makes the tackle, who's Shanklin highlighted on commentary. Ratty makes a tackle. The ball then goes out to Mason Grady, who goes to kick it, gets half charged down, lands in Nagy's hands. He takes it forward, puts Grady on his arse with a sidestep, and then is it one phase later? No, it goes to Dewi Lake, then to Jack Morgan. Jack Morgan swats around Jim Botham like he's not there. And then through the hands, lovely pass from Watkins to Giles, who does the right thing, actually. Does step in, he does the right thing, steps, manages to get the offload away, and Dan Edwards puts a perfectly flat offload in. Look, if we're going to say the Tommy Lewis one was forward, flat or backwards, then by the Lord, this one was backwards as well because it went backwards out the hand.
I think they call it aggressively flat, don't they?
Yeah.
That's the saying. So I think we better leave it at that, I suppose.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And look, it was really good. I really liked the fourth try. I like Luke Morgan's try. I liked the setup of that. Lovely fizz from Dan Edwards to Morgan. And then the penalty try happened right in front of me. I was really glad that we were just Cardiff Pack looked out on their feet towards the end, and it doesn't help it was Seb Davis red card. I do think their backs kept them in that game. I'm still not convinced by their forward pack, or by individuals in their forward pack. But look, Cardiff for great value. There was good narrative in the game. There was jeopardy. It's everything we wanted. It probably was the best regional derby for years.
I know everyone bangs on about how poor the conditions were, but I thought the game in Bridgend on New Year's Day is quite close to it in terms of handling skills and things like that.
I think the last great regional derby was that mad 58-34 game against the Scarlets or whatever it was.
That was admittedly a really good game of rugby.
I think that was my favourite one.
Well, everyone just booed Stephen Mile at the end because they wanted the kick.
Yeah, I was chanting, "We want 60."
Yeah.
But yeah, and the ultimate thing is we qualified for the playoffs.
Yeah, you can't really complain. Finish 8th and get
we've got another game of rugby. We've got off to Limerick now. So let's talk about Munster very quickly. I think we're done with Judgement Day.
Shout out to the Ray Lilo and Halaholo family that were sat behind me as well.
Yeah, because I saw them on the way out.
They brought a
really
lot
nice.
of noise. They were
good, really good, and hope Halaholo absolutely smashes it in New Zealand or whatever he does, and fair play to him, all the departing Cardiff players. Yeah, but especially to Halaholo. So, Munster v Cardiff.
That's happened a few weeks ago, didn't it?
Yeah. Munster v Osprey. So confirmed for Friday night. So both teams have a 6-day turnaround. 35 minutes past 7 at Thomond Park. Refereed by Holly Davidson from the Scottish Rugby Union in her 14th league game. Backed up by two Italians, Gianluca Necchi and Andrea Piardi. With Andrew McEnemy as SIU. God, this is like a depressing bunch. I like Holly, right? I think she's a fantastic ref, but she refed us horribly last time. It's left a sour taste in my mouth.
It's weird that in 14 URC games, this is Holly Davidson's third Munster Ospreys game.
Yeah.
How is this possible?
And then you got that cowboy on the touchline. Who's somehow worse when he's a touch judge. This is what I don't get. He's worse when he's a touch judge. Look,
it was one of the Challenge Cup years where this French linesman or whatever was in Swansea, and he kept getting the signals wrong for the line outs. He's always going for the other team.
I think I remember this.
I think everyone in the stand is shouting at him, and then he eventually got it right at some point in the second half, and everyone just started cheering at him. And that just reminds me of something that Andrea Piardi could do on Friday night.
So, furthermore, with Munster, they have started preparations at their high performance centre and given an injury list. So, there's good news for Diarmuid Barron. Josh Wycherley and Antoine Frisch, or Tony Frisch, as they return to training. Doesn't mean they'll necessarily play. You'd imagine Frisch would be involved if he's fit.
Yeah. It's his last couple of games before he moved to France, so I think they probably want to see him before he goes.
Furthermore, Rory Scannell will undergo surgery on his ankle after suffering an injury against Ulster. Big Tom Ahern suffered an ankle/lower leg injury against Ulster, will go for a scan. He's unavailable for the coming weeks. And Joey Carberry has played his last game in the Munster jersey, it looks like, after a thumb injury. So they join on the injury list Dave Kilcoyne, Roman Salanoa, who I don't think I've ever seen him play a game of rugby. I think he's a money laundering scheme.
I think he actually played in the win over Munster a couple of seasons ago. The one where Myler kicked 6 penalties.
Mental.
Yeah, I think.
Jean Klein, who's both injured in knee and eye, Paddy Patterson, Patrick Campbell, and the ever impressive Alex Nankerville. So that is some big injury doubt. So you're definitely going to have Casey Crowley. We don't think that Snyman's going to be cited.
No, there's talk about him. There's talk about him starting on the bench this weekend, actually, from Munster supporters.
Oh, okay.
So, but there's a lot of grunt missing there with Klein and O'Hare not playing, and Nackerell as well. There's a lot of power there, where you're thinking, oh, if the Ospreys had their first choice pack out, it would be really interesting. But obviously, the Ospreys are 3 second rows down themselves. So, yeah, it makes it balances it up a little bit, makes them interesting, I suppose.
Yeah, so in terms of squad selection, I think we'll see a very similar, if not identical, squad. With maybe swap Houston around on the bench for someone. Do you bring a Welsh in? But then you're sort of limiting your options on the wing. You might swap Nicky and Gareth around, but again, I don't see what you would. Ratty and Sutton. It'd be interesting to see if Fender is actually back, because we knew he was targeting Judgement Day. He hadn't started running 2 weeks before, so maybe, you never know. I doubt it, but it's something to put out there. So yeah, I think we'll see an identical squad, pretty much. It's a tough one because we are obviously firm underdogs. They are the defending champions. Like, anyone who's saying different is thick. It's just like everyone's like, "Oh, I think Ospreys have got a chance." No, we haven't. Stop. But yeah, I believe.
Can everyone stop saying that Ospreys have got a chance of winning this weekend? Look what happened in Gloucester.
Yeah,
everyone said they had the chance and they lost. So if we also be quiet for a couple of days, that'd be nice.
Yeah, especially you, Paul Williams.
Yeah, actually, if Paul Williams wants to predict Munster by 50, then be my guest.
If there's something this squad is good at, it's finding a way. Right, and it's cliche and everyone's sick of it, and the guys have dropped there. Everyone still hates the Ospreys, even though they liked us for 5 minutes. We can find a way. We pushed them really close at home. We tried to overplay, which resulted in 2 interceptions and a freak kick down the line. And then, missed refereeing decisions aside, and then Alex Cuthbert, grade 4 hamstring tear. We pushed them close. Obviously, Tony Parker's going to be a completely different beast, and Munster are the masters of timing their run. But I do think that we got on top of them in set piece. I think there are options. No, not options. There are definite ways in which we can get at this Munster team. And if we just keep the scoreboard ticking over, we have a chance, I think. Do you agree, or do you think that there's no chance at all and we should just stop trying?
Well, I convinced myself there's a little bit of a chance, but I spoke to my dad earlier and he said Munster are going to win by about 40 odd points. So it hasn't filled me with much optimism. But like you said, nobody gave them a chance of reaching the playoffs. 5%, 2%, whatever. If there's a side that can go out to Ireland and cause a bit of a shock, it's probably the Ospreys. I know that sounds a bit interesting, especially after happened the last time they went out to Ireland and played the match. Of course, Leinster put their first out, but it just a one-off game like that, everything on the line. It just feels like it's going to be quite close, and everyone mentions about the last time that the two sides played in Swansea. It was only a 10-point game, and if Cuthbert's hamstring doesn't go twang, it's a really exciting finish to that game, regardless of the interceptions, regardless of a scrum penalty leading into a line now and a crossfield kick and a try. It's gonna be. I think it's gonna be quite close. I don't think it's gonna be tries galore, but I don't think it's gonna end like 9-6 either. I think there'll be a couple of tries here and there, but I don't know. I feel like it's gonna be either an unconvincing Munster win where they might just lead for a long period of time and just close it out with about 20 minutes to go. Or I've guilt tripped myself in thinking there might be a shock. But I'm just going to go for Munster win because every time I predict an Ospreys win on the pod for a big game, it kind of goes wrong, except for last week, which weirdly went right. But a lot of things were weird last week, like the rest of the
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think people are writing us off in terms of how close it can be. Absolutely. Munster have the star power to run away with it. They like to play the ball out wide. We have to be a bit better out wide. Mark Jones spoke really well on Scrum 5 this weekend. I just think it can be a really good game. And I'm glad with and the bottom line is we're there. And I'm going to go again a bit ranty, but I've seen a lot of fans of the other teams saying that Ospreys play crap rugby and they do this and they don't do that and they don't throw the ball around. All this doesn't matter. You're not in the playoffs. Like it's been really funny watching Cardiff and Scarlets fans argue about who's in a worse or better season. Like it's like two bald men fighting over a comb. Like I get this context behind Cardiff's season, right? 10 losing bonus points and however many try bonus points. That's an achievement, but ultimately the bottom line is you still have lost 12 games, 13 games. You've only won 4. Same with Scarlets, like you won, was it 5 games? You lost 11. You also registered 0 points in Europe. So, lads, I don't care if you don't support us, but don't say it's not deserved. It is my message to fans. So, give me a score prediction then.
19-14 to Munster. I think we'll just put that.
I'm going to be an optimist. I'll say 20 points to 17 to the Ospreys.
As long as it doesn't end in a painful knock-on where Josh Matavesi scores the winner,
Yeah.
anything other than that is a positive. The Ospreys could lose 58-3 again, and they're still a positive than knocking it on and scoring in the red, only to go back for the said knock-on.
Yeah, to be fair, the bar is pretty low. We only have to score more than 3 points.
Yeah, well, if Hugh Sutton could do an interception again, then...
Yeah. Probably would make it all right, to be fair.
Yeah, I suppose.
So, I think that's it. It's a short one tonight because Iestyn's got stuff to get to. That's it. Like, either next week we're going to be previewing Glasgow Stormers. I believe it would be Glasgow Stormers, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that's the semi-final.
So either going to Scotstoun or
Cape Town
again. Or we're going to be doing our end of season wrap up and awards.
At least we've got an extra week to kind of sort it all out.
We have got an extra week. Other than that, I think that's pretty much everything. I don't think I'm actually going to be able to watch the game. Oh, I might be able to. So fingers crossed for me. I know you're doing stuff as well. Friday night.
Ironically free Friday night. It's just Thursday, Saturday. I'm busy.
All right then. So that's been us. We'll see you all next week. Hopefully back at the regular time and hopefully back up to a trio.
And just want to apologise to everyone for no good player tonight. We just all
no good player. We don't have time.
We've somehow thought it was a good idea to somehow have a URC quarter-final weekend and assume that the Ospreys didn't make it, and we all have things to do.
We'll be back for a bumper good player next week, I think. I'll dig something out next week. Right, no start.
Thank you for listening to the Ospreys Irie podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe, rate and review wherever you listen to us, as it really helps spread the word. You can find us on all the usual social media channels or email us on welshregionalrugbypod@gmail.com. And remember, whatever the question, rugby is always the answer.
Sports Social Podcast Network.